There is an but there we are.
Okay.
Shall I repeat the question for the
Uh, actually, go ahead and do that. Yes.
audience? If you
Mm-hmm.
yes, well, all right. I have the idea that. Well, I'll give you it as I wrote it. As I sit down, I'm sitting at this stage on a cushion on a mat because I find that comfortable. I got to a stage of being able to do that. And also, this is what I'm doing. As I sit down, I arrange my legs on the cushion, etc. I get contacts from the sense of touch. Some good, some not, a mixture. Then comes very quickly a kind of Vedana of I like that. And as I go with the breathing, I like the relaxation of the body, which is of carrot. I want more of that. It feels good, and I hang on to that, and effectively it takes over. This is what I wrote yesterday, and I become one who feels a huge amount of coarse physical pity, which produces a good feeling of satisfaction. So I've got satisfaction, and I've got success. I'm thinking, so yippee at this stage, I can do this, which is what what you've been talking about. So really, the question is, am I now using it beneficial way, the Paticca Samuppada, because normally the way Paticca Samuppada seems to be taught is you're stopping a bad escalation, if you like. But I'm using it to sort of produce a better feeling, if you like.
Okay.
What exactly into that?
Well, first off, you can get that we start using wholesome thoughts to begin to control the mind in the wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we can begin to put gaps in that wholesome thought pattern so that when we come out of the gaps, it goes back into the wholesome thoughts. So if we can do it that way, then we can also see the feelings in a kind of the similar way. That the first thing is that, like the mind, the feelings are out of control, and we don't have much control, actually, over how we feel until we practice. And what we're going to practice is intentionally feeling good. And not only that, but exploring what it is, what it means to feel good. And when we explore what it means to feel good, that begins then to give us enormous control over the way we feel. And eventually we can come to the state that maybe the best feelings of all is not much feeling at all, that let the feelings come to a rest. And this is where that whole teaching about Paticca Samuppada comes in, especially at the point of wisdom, at the point of contact, means that now we can actually begin to control the feelings. But as we also bring perception to a stop, it also brings the feelings to a stop. Now, this is pretty sophisticated or out there someplace, but the point is that we're going in that direction of learning to control the feelings so that they can subside. But we can't go from bad feelings to equanimity. We always have to be able to control the feelings, and in the controlling of the feelings, because if we have no control of the feelings, there's no possibility of going from bad feelings to no feeling. We have to learn to control the feelings by controlling them into feeling good, and then we can control that into subsiding with more sophisticated control into um, at ease. We can also see, in fact, that we're doing the same thing with the body, that we start with the body feeling comfortable and safe and secure, and we eventually wind up with the body being completely relaxed. So, with the body relaxed, with the mind relaxed to the point of not much
Hang on.
thinking at all, and the feelings become relaxed.
Can I stop you there? I've got a bad signal this end. I'm only getting a low rate of download.
Oh,
I'm going
I
to change over onto. Go on. Go ahead.
yes, I think the problem is on your end because we've got uh, fiber optics right into the house here, and that I noticed in the front of the call, the first part of the call, that your voice was dropping out quite heavily. So it may be
Yeah.
that your Wi-Fi is not strong. If you can get to a better Wi-Fi, we'd be better off.
I'm going to try. I'm just going to try on to take it through the telephone. Wait a minute. Before I do that, I just want to try and get the speed. Well, no, I won't. I'll do that. I will bring up Skype on my phone using the Wi-Fi, not the Wi-Fi into the house, but the telephone data signal. Where's sorry. No, if I try to get into the call, will this give me the call?
You're still dropping out a lot.
Hang on. I'm calling you through the phone now.
Are you
Are you
joined?
joined?
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
So turn one of the microphones off.
Right, that's what we've done.
Right.
We've turned it. Oh, the voice is going all funny, but
I can hear you just fine now.
You can hear me just fine, and can you see me? I'm going through the
Yes,
phone.
I can. Yes, it would be better if you turned it horizontal, but it's
Right.
okay now. There you go. There you are.
Okay. Hang on. Let's try and exit the Skype on the computer. Right.
All right.
And now I'm coming through.
I know everything is good.
Yes.
We're fine.
Everything's good, right? And you can see me okay, and I can see you okay, right? That's fine. Good. Well, where were we? Yes.
We were talking about the last of it is that as we understand the Anapanasati, is that we can either do the investigation that's needed with a mind that's noisy, clouded, all over the place, bad feelings, hindrances, and that's the way that the Mahasi system is taught.
Yeah.
It can also be understood to be the shortcut method. Go directly to the Dhamma Vipassana. However, the teaching of the Buddha is that no, we're going to be doing all of Anapanasati. We're going to work with the body, the feelings, and the mind. In fact, the mind states or the conditions of the mind, not the content. All right. So being able to have one wholesome thought after another is not one wholesome thought after another per se. It's having a mind that is in a state that delivers one wholesome thought after another.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's a part of settling down. That's the part of becoming still. The stillness is, first off, instead of being the monkey jumping all over the forest, the monkey is staying in one tree, just the wholesome. Okay. We do exactly the same thing as that with the body, in the sense that we start by watching the breathing. We investigate the body, especially any tensions and whatnot like that, and ultimately come to the body at rest, relaxed, stable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Though the translators want to use words like tranquil or tranquilized, I would prefer to use just being at rest. Okay. We do the same thing with the feelings. From the state of the feelings is that they're unwholesome and wholesome, they're mixed together, they're all over the place. And what
Hmm.
we're going to do with the feelings also is train them first by being able to control the feelings to the point that they're positive, happy feelings, the kind of feelings that we would want. And then we bring even that to a rest, because ultimately the when I say to people, well, how do you want to feel? What's the best feeling that you could have? And by experimenting with the very, very high peaks and everything like that, ultimately coming home back to the valley are just no feelings at all. The feelings come at rest. So when the feelings are at rest, when the mind's at rest, when the body is at rest, now that's like a tripod so that we can really, really see what's going on. And also in this state, everything that there is to see is real. Everything that there is to see is wholesome because we've already removed the unreal and unwholesome by getting the mind steady. And so many meditation practices don't work so well because the observation is still just observing the hindrances rather than seeing reality the way that it really is. And so that's the distinction. Now, some say, well, one is a Vipassana method, and the other one is a Samatha method, which is the word for peace or stillness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the sutras, it says, no, they've got to be developed together. If you have one, then get the other. But if you
Yes.
don't have either one, go get them both together. All right. And in that way, in fact, without making the discernment of what is a wholesome thought and what is not a wholesome thought, we're not doing any vipassana in the inside at all. The first insight we want is, oh, that's an unwholesome thought, throw it out.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Oh, that's an unhappy, unwholesome feeling. It's a feeling of fear. Let me change that. Let me settle down and I don't feel afraid. Let me throw that feeling out so that I can have happy feelings and happy thoughts, which then come to a rest.
Right. Right.
But we have to use vipassana in the sense of seeing what's going on all along the way. That's why samatha and vipassana are actually joined together. But back to your original question, then, is that we do want to control the feelings. And the better way of controlling them is the easy way, and that is learning to control how we feel. And then we can learn to control the intensity of the feelings so that we wind up being just easy. Everything is really easy. So that's the way that we learn to control the feelings. Rather than coming from bad feelings up to zero, we go from negative to full on positive. Explore the positive completely and then let it rest.
The difficulty is with that, of course, that it tends to hang on. The positive. If you don't watch it, you get into all this body convulsing and or what they call, I believe, um, uh, oh dear, any
Well,
other
let me
word.
ask you this. How many hours a day do you spend jerking your body around like that?
Very little of the very little. I mean, if I
Okay.
spend, I mean, I'm tending to try and sit for 6 minutes at a time, and then sometimes this goes on to 18, 12, 18, 24. But in the normal way, I'm trying to do a small number of actual attempts to meditate. A number of them in a day, short periods. And this is fair enough. I mean, one is going around then with a general feeling in the back of the mind that I can do this when I want to do it. I can get somewhere with it when I want to do it. The problem is then when we pass on to what happens when a stimulus comes in which leads to anger. Now, a schoolmate of mine, back when I was at school, still in touch with the guy, said to me, you have a habit of getting the wrong end of the stick and thinking it's the thick end of the wedge and thinking it's the thin end of the wedge and then hitting back with the thick end. Now, so looking at when a stimulus comes in, I mean, somebody says something to you that you do not like. So if I'm looking at it from the point of view of Paticca Samuppada, the first thing I'm getting is the ear consciousness and so on. I'm getting a sound. Now in the first instance, I'm not really at the instant of hearing it. I'm not deciding whether that is I like it or I don't like it. It comes to the point where I've figured out what is being said. I've presumably now compared it with sankharas, with various past memories, internal memories. And at this point, the sort of trigger arises, and I do feel that there is a kind of trigger. Sometimes you can actually notice that there is a trigger. The difficulty, of course, is that stopping it at this trigger point, stopping yourself from pulling the trigger, and replying with an unwholesome reply.
Okay. All right. So let me respond to this so far. The trigger that's pulled is not necessarily what that guy said, the incoming. All right. That in fact part of the sankhara is that you've heard that before and you didn't like it before, and so you hear it this time and you don't like it this time. Okay.
I realize that.
All right. So that's good. That's great. Now we can say that we can actually do something like this in two different ways, in the sense that we can do it in advance with wisdom.
Okay.
Or we can do it in the sense of trying to undo the damage that got done when we didn't see it coming. So let us express it like this. Imagine that the guy who said what he said, when he said it to you, you didn't like it, okay? There's some, I don't know what it was, some criticism. Somebody criticized you and you didn't like it, right? All right, all of that is all delusional. The actuality is that he criticized a Gerry in his own mind, because he doesn't know who you are at all. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know who you are. All he knows is he doesn't like something, and so he criticizes Gerry in his own mind. Now, there's also the Gerry in the room, but that's not you either. That in fact, the way that we want to take it wisely is that you're an observer and you're seeing Gerry there getting criticized. We're going to observe this thing going on and realize that you're actually going to be Gerry's agent so that you can help Gerry to behave according to wisdom rather than according to his feelings. So we set up this third party, this individual, the observer, who is also going to become the agent.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever criticized Gerry was criticizing a Gerry in his own mind.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have this new observer who's going to protect Gerry from the Gerry that's in the room, from the Gerry in that guy's mind, because the wise one, the observer, knows they're not the same. Okay, he's not observing. He's not. He, in fact, he is not criticizing you. He's criticizing his own imagination of you, and that's liberating to recognize that he's not talking about you at all.
Well, that's not entirely so, because when the criticism comes in, you also think he's got a point there. He's got,
Okay, but that's because you've already taken that arrow right out of the air and stabbed yourself with it.
But he's
You've
right.
already. Well, it doesn't matter whether he is right or not. What matters is how you feel about whether you've gotten hit by that arrow. It doesn't matter whether he is right or not. Let the right arrows as well as the wrong arrows just whiz right by.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I thought the point about this was that the arrow hits you, and you don't.
Yeah, that's because you
don't
weren't
feel
smart
better.
enough to see it. You weren't smart enough to see it coming. Now we're going to add this observer in there that's going to be able to see and protect Gerry, because the guy slung arrows not at Gerry, but at Gerry in his own mind. Okay, so let those arrows just go off into space, and the observer, the one who can see clearly, the adult in the room, the adult in your mind, and says, oh, he missed the point. He missed. He didn't get you. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know who you are. In other words, we take the self out of it. That you keep putting the self in there, or actually another way I like to talk about it is that you're making yourself a target so that you do get hit by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, rather than finding ways of dodging them because you're not there. If you're not there, then what can they hit?
This does not accord with what it feels like.
Well, that's because you've already gotten hit.
Yes.
Too late.
But the point is that I come back to is that criticism may be to an extent valid. That criticism may not be, indeed, it may not be intended in the way it seems to be intended. It may be a sort of, it may be somebody trying to sort of make some helpful kind of
Except
thing.
that but it doesn't matter what he's doing in his mind, is how you let it be hit, or how you hit yourself with it. You're the one who takes it personal. That's why you feel bad, is because it's the you, it's the selfish part. It's the your sandcars. Oh, here I go hurting again. Not only do you feel the way that you feel now, but it's an old familiar feeling. It's almost like every time you've ever been criticized, this is how you feel.
Of course.
All right. So maybe
Because
you need to start practicing being criticized and feel something else rather than the old habit of feeling the way you do when you're criticized.
But then how do you get past the sensation that this criticism is correct.
It doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter whether
unjust criticism.
Well, if it's good news, then thank him for it. If it's good news, then thank him for it. That's a good idea. That's a good point. But then you're doing, but that takes some effort, something new on your part, rather than just going down the same old rat hole of feeling the way that you've done it every time. The you that gets hit for that feeling is the one that then suffers and goes down that rat hole. Let's have a new observer in there. And the observer says, spot on, that's good information. Or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting because this idea of the observer always raises in my mind the question of, I mean, I know it's anatta doesn't mean, well, sorry, I'm getting past where I'm going. The question of the observer arises in the mind, who is the observer?
Yes, I know, and that goes down a rat hole of its own. Let's just allow the observer without having to be, let us say it this way, the correct way of saying it is let the observation be there without an observer. We don't really want to focus on the observer. We want to focus on the fact that we can see what's going on, the observation, which is a higher...
But, yeah, I hear you, but obviously the difficulty is to imagine an observation without an observer. I mean, this is something that, all right, we read about it, we hear about it.
Hang on. Immediately, what has happened is we've gone from a real life situation that you've got a real feeling, and now you've gone all philosophical and everything. Let's not go philosophical, and let's get down to really what needs to be done, and that is to be able to get out of the way of the criticism so that you're not hit by that arrow. Get out of its way. To let the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune miss their target, because you are not there to get hit. You're not making yourself a target anymore. Just because he's throwing wild arrows of accusations and criticism out into the room in general doesn't mean that you have to go stand in front of that in order to make sure that his arrows strike their target. That's what you've been doing. Oh, that's me he's talking about. And now you can say, oh no, that's not you. That's not you. That's not who he's talking about. He's just off thinking about his own thing. He doesn't know who you are at all. What he says may be correct, but he didn't hit me. You take the me out of it. So that's the way that we can practice, actually. Now, we can practice that in advance, in the sense that if you know that this guy is probably going to criticize you when you walk into the room with him, don't go in that room. That's how advanced you can get with this. Don't go to the places where you think you're going to get criticized. But then if the criticism happens, don't let them happen to you. Take a mental hike, move across the room, dodge the bullet. This is why so many of the young people like that Matrix movie, is because the whole point of the end of the movie is being able to dodge the bullets, which is basically the same thing as dodging the slings and arrows of outrageous fortunes and criticisms and language and whatever. Just bend out of the way. It's not you he hit.
Curiously enough, I've never seen the Matrix movie, but
you can get the idea of dodging the bullets. Yeah, you can dodge that criticism. He didn't hit you. He's just out there shooting wild at some target he's got in his mind.
Yeah, well, of course, what you do see. I mean, I'm not thinking of the Matrix. I'm thinking of all the Star Wars ones, where the guy with the lightsaber actually hits the bullet as it comes in, which is uh, which is all more fantasy, really. Well, it is all fantasy. So
Well, or it's training beyond the capabilities of the audience, which makes it fantasy. We don't know what's real. And in fact, almost none of the movies are real. They're almost all stop motion. That in fact, the real saber, the samurai that really get excellent at it and would rather do an exhibition rather than a movie. That's almost always staged. But there is some pretty spectacular things that happen right there on the baseball field. For that pitcher to have really thrown that ball with all his might, and a half a second later, that ball is right in his face. Can he catch it?
well,
And that
yes.
happens quite a lot. Quite a lot it does. Quite a lot. Those pitchers will catch that hard drive that batter hit out.
Hmm.
He threw it at 100 miles an hour, and they came back at him at 200 miles an hour, and he caught it anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. Well, to put it in British cricketing terms, I suppose the same thing happens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I've never been to a baseball game. Um, anyway, you're talking to an alien here, you know. Yeah. Okay. Well,
So
no.
anyway, that kind of stuff is not important. What's important is that can you dodge the comments and see that those comments or those criticisms are not you, that he's just out there criticizing. You don't have to take it as criticism, even just mistakes. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Forgive him, but don't stand in the way and become his target. Play dodgeball a little bit. Get out of your own way.
It's a happy thought.
Well, next time have that happy thought just in time before the criticism is finished so that you'll be able to get right out of its way. You don't have to stand there and say, yeah, that's me you're talking about. Oh,
Yes. No, I always think it's a bit like. Are you familiar with the poem "The Shooting of Dan McGrew"?
no, I didn't see that movie. I don't know it.
It wasn't a movie. It's a poem from a way back at the beginning of the 20th century about a gunfight in a bar.
Uh-huh.
I mean, effectively, the stranger stumbles in out of the dark, and he insults the sort of the head baddie in the bar, and
Uh-huh.
he comes in and he plays the piano. The Jagtime Kid is having a drink and there's nobody on the stool, so the stranger stumbles across the bar and he chops down there like a fool. And the author describes the effect of the music and the feelings it arouses, and it finishes up with uh, something or other that burnt like a frozen lash, and the lust awoke to kill, and the music stopped with a crash. So it's the lust awoke to kill, that's brought on by the music. And then, of course, then what happens, of course, is the lights go down, the two men shoot at each other, and it ends up with pitched on his head and pumped full of lead was dangerous Dan McGrew. And the man from the creek clutched to the breast of the lady, you see, and it's all sort of declamatory stuff that they used to go in for at that stage when people recited poems out loud. But the point, the point is that it's triggering the lust to kill, which is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you stop that? Because it's not so much dodging the bullet as
Well, that bar scene though is that people work themselves up. That it's always starts off as an argument. The Dhamma dude is going to recognize that argument starting up as it starts up and take a hype, get out of it, and go do something else. But an ordinary person is going to stay in the argument, and the feelings build up and build up, and neither party knows that this is not going in a good direction. Maybe somebody else in the bar will say, "Will you two guys knock it off?" Or maybe somebody will go stand between them or whatever like that. But if nobody comes between them, it's going to wind up in violence, whether they've got guns or not.
Like in the old movies, when invariably somebody gets thrown through the bar window. Yeah.
Right, but that's because they were standing there getting hit by the slings and arrows, and every time that they got hit with a new one, they got more outraged, and both people are going up in anger, and it doesn't happen instantly. Every one of those mind moments, you have a choice. Are you going to wake up and see where this is headed? Have some wisdom here. Arguments never go anywhere correctly. It's always as soon as you recognize that you've gotten started in an argument to break it up.
This is true. This is certainly true.
Okay, so how soon can you recognize it? That's what this is all about. The original part that we were talking about is to have the wisdom in advance before he ever says it. But the point about getting shot is because he said it, I got hit, I hit him back, and he hit me, and we hit, and now the guns come out, and we start shooting at each other. But it was all a buildup. That in fact, almost without a doubt, that when anybody kills someone in first-degree murder, not in the heat of the argument, but in first degree, they will give a warning that the court can drag in there. They'll put something on Instagram, or they'll write a threatening email, or they'll do something. They put it into speech first. And that would be a good time to wake up. Look at what I'm writing here. I'm about to tell this guy that I'm trying to hurt him, and then I will go out and actually try to hurt him. So we always have time if we would wake up before we get violent, by looking at how we feel about it and changing the way that we feel about it. Like, for instance, congratulating the guy for being correct rather than being angry at him because he not only was correct, but he was able to wound you with his correct arrow. But if you can let that correct arrow just fly by and you can say, "Hey, that was a good correct arrow that you just shot," but you didn't hit me. And that can be done at any stage along in the argument, is when are we going to wake up? Because if we don't wake up ever, there's going to be violence.
Yes. I mean, I'm not really talking about a sustained argument here, so much as something that is said and produces, it triggers a reaction in oneself.
Right.
Without
which is the start.
building up.
The start of the argument. The start of the argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, the start of the argument. That's the time to stop it, is when the argument starts. Rather than ending it with a bang, which is the way that you said that you'd do it.
Well,
you'll end the argument quickly, but you'll destroy something doing it.
Well, that's right. I mean, yeah, you don't let it pull. You don't let it pull up to shooting or escalate. You just
go to 100.
It's that lovely one. It reminds just gives. I just had the picture of that going back to movies. There's one of those Indiana Jones movies where a large man with an Arabic man in his robes with a scimitar starts waving it around, and Indiana Jones just looks sort of, oh, for God's sake, here we go again, pulls up his revolver and blows the guy away. Doesn't wait for anything, just instant reaction there.
All right, so let's do that. That's the Dhamma dude. As soon as you see this guy all dressed up in criticism, trying to do his voodoo dance in front of you, all you have to do is pull your wisdom gun out and just blow him away. But not with a comment, but with wisdom.
Yeah.
The wisdom is he can't hurt you. He can't touch you. Only you can hurt you. And you're in the habit of doing that. So get out of the habit of hurting you. That when he throws that arrow at you, you make sure that it hits the target. Now you can start making sure he can't hit any targets here. No bullseyes here. This is what we mean by getting out of our own way. And in fact, in order to be hit, that's a kind of selfishness. We become selfish. We're trying to protect the self.
Indeed.
And when you're not trying to protect yourself, because you just got out of the way of it, you don't have to, deal with the arrow because you didn't get hit by it. So plan in advance. They can't hit you. They can't get to you. But look at all those times that they did get to you, and now you're not going to been there, done that. Now you're not going to let them get to you anymore. You're going to stand aside.
Okay.
Yeah, that works, doesn't it? You could see it that way. Yeah, you don't have, just because you got hit by that criticism over and over again when we were a kid. Now we can stand aside. Been there, done that. I felt bad enough by being criticized. Now the criticism can just roll right by.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So be on guard. When these guys come in with their slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, be ready. Be in your karate stance or whatever like that. You missed me.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
let's go ahead and finish now. I think that you kind of got it. This is good.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's, yes. Right. Was there anything else?
Well, let's do it next time. I think that you sit with this one today, that you don't have to get criticized. You don't have to stand and get hit by the criticism. You can get out of its way. Especially the criticism that comes from within. When you start to criticize yourself, you can say, never mind, just stand right out of its way.
Yeah, but the problem with that is you're not being honest with yourself.
Yes, you are. You're being not only honest, but you're not being cruel. You're conflating cruelty with honesty. Be gentle and nurturing instead of honest cruelty.
But that's...
It's okay that you screw up. You have been screwing up your whole life and feeling bad. Now it's time for you to start to screw up naturally the way you've been screwing up all along and feel good about it. Your choice.
Well, yes. I suppose suppose it is, but I mean, sort of completely counterintuitive. Hang on. Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
I need to vacate where I'm at, or
Okay.
I'll end the call. Hang on. Carry on. Sorry, I just have to rearrange things here. Right. No, I was in the kitchen there, and my wife has come down and
Never mind.
so
We're okay
I'll
now.
move out of the kitchen, but I mean that's probably time to stop anyway, Dhammarato.
Yes, I think that staying with this one point is good today. Getting this one point out. And also recognize that you criticize yourself on the inside, and you don't have to do that, whether it's correct or not. Be nurturing and loving to yourself rather than critical.
Yes, well, yeah.
Accepting yourself, warts and all, you're okay just the way you are. You don't have to make any changes or improvements. You're already okay. Take a rest.
I thought the whole point of this exercise was making changes and improvements.
Well, the changes that we're making and the improvements is to stop making improvements and start enjoying the way things already are. Let's not get too confused here. The changes that we make is to stop working so hard, to stop seeing so much wrong, and to start recognizing everything is already okay.
Okay, well.
You don't have to fix anything. Everything's already all right. Wow, what a relief. Everything's already okay. I don't have to fix anything.
Oh, come on. After decades of I'm not okay, I mean, come on.
Practice, my friend, practice.
Yeah, well, there we are.
Because you've been practicing really, really many years at talking yourself into feeling bad. Now it's time for you to practice talking yourself into feeling good. You're okay.
Oh, I have to say that I have to say that sounds facile. It sounds hollow. It sounds, weighed against the.
But the way that you're talking right now is still critical.
Absolutely.
Right. So can you start having a nurturing thought that everything is all right anyway? It's not absurd.
Then you're
Wow,
nurturing yourself. You're nurturing yourself far too much. You shouldn't be doing that.
You ain't nurturing yourself nearly enough, and you're talking about too much already.
Yeah, well, there we are.
Yes, that's the way the critical mind is. This critical mind is only happy critical 100% of the time. We don't want any nourishing in here at all.
Oh, no, I mean, you get some nourishing, but you criticize yourself for nourishing,
Well, there you go. So stop. That's the whole point. Take the effort. The effort, actually, if you can think of the right effort, is always on the brake pedal. Put your effort into the brakes. Stop it.
Yes. Well.
Stop thinking. Stop being critical. Stop, all those unwholesome thoughts. Just take the wholesome thoughts. Everything is okay. Everything is fine. When people are criticizing you, everything is okay. Everything is fine. They can't touch you.
Yes.
Yes, that's real freedom. The real freedom is not being completely free from being able, or free from having the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. The freedom is that they can't touch you.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
So you can do that with your own critical thoughts. Just say, hey, I don't have to criticize myself. I'm already okay. Everything's all right. Everything is fine. I mean, you've been working for all of these years to try to fix things, and still everything feels like it needs to be fixed. Why don't we change our attitude to, well, maybe things were the way they were all along, they were okay, and I keep fixing them and they're still okay, and now I can stop fixing them and they'll still be okay.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just stop.
It doesn't sound like any kind of self-improvement, which
Well, we're not trying to improve the self, that in fact we're just kind of letting the self have a rest. We're not trying to self help. We're trying to
you know,
already, yeah, it doesn't need any help.
Well, this is what all this stuff is about, isn't it?
No, I think that in fact that there are, we can say then that there is this Western Buddhism that already has this whole history of psychology, psychotherapy, self help books, Power of
Hmm.
Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, all the way back to uh, How to Win Friends and Influence People by what was it?
I know.
Yeah, okay, so there's a long, long history of all of that kind of stuff that's getting in the way of the actual teachings of the Buddha, which are very, very simple. Very simple. Stop trying to fix yourself and accept yourself the way you are, and you're okay. And then you can be friends with yourself, and then you can be friends with other people. And that's basically all there is to the teaching of the Buddha. You don't have to go win friends. That in fact, a guy who wins friends is probably trying to do so in a phony kind of way. But if you're already friends with yourself, then it's easy to make friends with other people.
Well, that's the point about all this self-help stuff. Ultimately, it's all phony.
Yeah, but
It doesn't work.
Let's do something now that's authentic, right here, right now. Right here, right now. Just nurture yourself. You're okay. That in fact, that whole point about when someone is criticizing you, just stand out of the way. That's a way of nurturing yourself. Just stand out of the way. Don't get hit by his criticism. Just stand out of the way. Take the easy
Hmm.
way out. Nurture yourself. You're all right. You don't have to defend yourself against him. You're already okay. This is an easy, easy concept. It's just upside down to everything you've been taught. That's why it needs to be practiced
Okay.
with wholesome thoughts, one wholesome thought after another. Everything is okay, everything is fine, no problems, no worries, no criticisms, everything's all right. Or as the Zen people say, just sitting, no place to go, nothing to do. The spring comes and the grass grows all by itself. Yeah. And that's alien to these self help books, which, by the way, were written by people who wanted to self help by getting some money out of writing the book.
Well, of course. I mean, it's a great way to do it. It's the lovely story, of course, of uh, how was it Scientology got founded? I mean, L. Ron Hubbard was talking to a couple of other science fiction writers. I think it was Heinlein.
And he
And
made
Dhamma.
it all up, and he knew
And
he
he
was
made
making
it
it.
all up, and he said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make up a religion. And he did.
Did.
And boy, have they made money out of that one.
Mhm.
It's a great wee number, that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, look.
Let's go get a Tom Cruise or two, and we're in like Flint.
Absolutely. Anyway, we'd better stop there because I
right.
got to go and
Yes.
go
Okay.
make some
I know.
brunch or something. So, okay.
Everything is all right. Everything is fine. Gerry, we'll see you soon.
Thank you
Go
very
have
much
fun.
for that, Dhammarato. Yeah. Okay. Cheers then. Now how do I switch this thing on? Oh yes. Okay. Bye bye.